Hi, it's Joy Foster, founder of TechPixies and the host of the Sparkle and Thrive podcast. And today I am really excited to bring on our resident life coach. Juliet was a student of TechPixies way back when, like 2000, we don't even know, 18?
I think.
Yeah, 2018. And so she came through as a student, and then she helped me with support. And then you were helping me behind the scenes with students going through various different challenges. And really one day it sort of dawned on us that really you should be one of the life coaches at TechPixies. And so you went and got your barefoot coaching certification, which is what Teresa had done. And those of you who know Teresa and know we love Teresa. And then Teresa has passed the baton on to you, and you are now the TechPixies resident life coach.
I know. Wow.
It is such a journey. So I want to talk about this journey. And I want to talk about you and how you found out you were a life coach and the kind of work you do at TechPixies. So let's start with your story, though. First and foremost, this is also Pride Month, and we're doing some amazing interviews with employees and people that we know in the world that are sharing their stories. So we'd love for you to also share that story if you'd be willing.
Absolutely. Where to start, though? Where to start? Let's start recent, because with the TechPixies. So I've obviously had a few years behind me, and I've had some adventures. I came to Oxford originally, studied anthropology and art. I spent a few years in Barcelona, worked in publishing, doing photo research pictures in Oxford and London. Came and went, came back to Oxford. It's a lovely place to live, small and manageable. And so then in context, 2022. So I'm in a relationship with Elaine, who's marvelous. So that's the Pride Month kind of, I can be a TechPixies gay icon. And then in 2009, I had twins. Now, obviously, this was a planned choice. The twins were a surprise, but the choice to have a child or two was a choice. So we have boy and girl twins, and those twins are lucky enough to have two mothers. And that in itself, where we live, it's kind of absolutely fine. East Oxford, it's a very diverse area, really diverse, economically, socially, racially, all sorts. You meet everybody. So by the time my children went to school, I suppose about a year later, when Joy's first daughter went to school, so I met Joy at the school gates, and Joy is a friendly face. I'm generally a friendly face, and so you find those people who are open to chit chat. And I kind of knew about the start of TechPixies from the very beginning, and I was doing other things at the time, and my head was still in a complete spin from having twins. It was quite a challenge. It was a challenging and exciting time. Anyway, so I knew TechPixies was there in the background, and Joy was always friendly, so we'd always have a little chit chat on the street, really. And then I just came to a point at some point, and the kids were a bit older and slightly more, I had slightly more brain power, and said to Joy, I think it's time for me to do TechPixies. I think something else had changed in my life. I can't remember what. And I said, okay, that thing happened, which I didn't expect. But it means that I reckon I can do TechPixies now. So I did the course and loved it. I was on, I think, one of the later physical cohorts. So we'd meet 10 of us every week. And it was the great TechPixies thing, a diverse bunch of us, all women, mixed ages, and we'd meet in this office building, which was very manageable, very plain. We just had a kind of neutral background, and we learned about social media, but we also learned about each other, and we learned about kind of network. Was a really subtle learning about social media, how to manage it, where it might fit in, but also supportive working systems. I think subtly we learn about very different ways of working and ways of being. And I really liked that. So I was just trundling along. I'd done the course and I did a bit of the social media support for the course for a month with, I think, 2 of the other students. And then a job came up and I thought, that's my job. I really, really want to work there. I think it would be really interesting. I really want it. I really want to do it. I think I could do it. I think I'd like to. I'd love to do it, in fact. So that happened, and I had an interview with Joy on one of the board.
And you even bought a new dress.
I did. I went, I'm not saying where. I knew. I think I bought more than one new dress, or one, certainly a couple of new outfits, admittedly the night before. And when I was in the shop, I bumped into another tech pixie, and I think it was one of cohort 1 or 2. And I thought, well, that's a great omen. Anyway, so I was nicely dressed for my tech pixie interview, had an interview with Joy and a board member actually, who had not met, but great. So then I was sales and support at TechPixies, and I've done sales before actually, kind of almost unwittingly. I worked in an independent jeweler's shop, and I used to help people find things that they like. That was how I put it. There was never any pressure on me. And also with TechPixies, although the role was initially called sales and customer support, I think, or something like that.
I think it was TechPixies Experience or something like that.
Oh yes, TechPixies.
Head of experience.
That's it, experience manager. But there was no
good old startup name.
Yeah, perfect. So I started looking after the admin, talking to people, working out if the course was right for them, welcoming them in, sending out nice cards. What a nice job. You send nice things to people in the post, you talk to them on the phone. It's always been fun. We worked in Joy's front room, squeezed in all together, 4, occasionally 5, occasionally 6 of us, hours of fun, Joy darting in and out. Who's going to make the tea? Quick. So hours of fun at TechPixies. And then, we'd have our meetings from time to time. And I think I'd been in the car with Joy, and I remember taking a call and Joy said, blimey, I couldn't be that patient. And, to me, I didn't think twice about it. And with time, I did more and more of the phone calls, of the just people who needed to talk to a human being. And I think I had a meeting with Joy, and we were talking again about where roles would, where our roles would fit in with TechPixies as changes occurred, as they always do. And I said, well, I think the thing that I know that I can do well, and I do best, I think, for me, and I'm confident, is the talking to people, and the listening to people, that bit as well, really important, and the kind of empathy and sharing. And that was when I got on I did the foundation with Barefoot initially, loved it, thought, okay, I want more. I've always been a student. I've always been a creative and a student in my life. So whatever work I'm doing, I've always done printmaking, photography, upholstery, making, gardening, whatever. But also I love learning about all sorts of new things, and all this coaching stuff. I just thought, this is never ending. There is so much exciting.
Isn't that the truth? You're into the world of a coach and you're like, oh my gosh, I can learn forever.
Yes, Yes, but the whole thing is that each person is totally unique.
Yes.
And there are kind of some of the things that you learn, I suspect that it will all come back to some very, very fundamental things like listening and loving or respecting other people. But yeah, listening and curiosity. And not being an expert, but being, but informing ourselves. And well, in my case, informing myself as much as I can. I'm loving the neuro coaching as well, Joy. I'm reading about the brain, and I love that it's also recent and
Yes.
Also ongoing.
Yes.
That's very exciting. But
yeah, this whole world of neurocoaching, it's really, I mean, not very old at all, 1 to 2 decades, and it's expanding every day. And we know so much more now than we knew, even when you and I were kids. There's just, when we were kids, the knowledge was your brain was sort of complete as a teenager, and that was it. And this lifelong learning, this concept of lifelong learning and personal development was just, it wasn't what it is now, I think. And I remember when I wrote Social Media Success, I said in there, you would be forgiven if you didn't have this perspective of life, because in reality, a lot of the thought leaders in this space didn't, have only been around for the last 2 decades. So, I mean, I know there's some, in the learning I'm doing, there's a lot more longer term knowledge available, but most of it's written by men, most of it's written by white men. And it was pre-scientific proof of, what we now have a lot more evidence of, right? With the neurological pathways and synaptic pruning and everything else. So I find it fascinating. And I love that you find it fascinating too, because, that's one of the reasons why I think, we've always loved working together, is that curiosity, how do things work? And I recently sat on a coaching conference, and someone said, the word, I don't know if it was the word curiosity comes from the word cure, or cure comes from the word curious. But what I took away from that is the cure is curiosity. That's the takeaway, that the cure for any problem you have is curiosity, rather than, shame or, beating yourself up. It's actually, let's get curious. Like, why is, I was saying to someone the other day, one of my coaches had said to me, well, life is a spiral. And I really didn't get it the first time I heard that. I thought, I don't get how life is a spiral. That doesn't make any sense to me. But as I've been in this training for now over a year, I've started to understand that what she meant by life as a spiral is that we come back to things again and again, but at a different level. So we're going, like, we might have had money issues when we were in our 20s, and then we're going to have money issues in our 30s and money issues in our 40s, but we're going to be at a different level, especially if we're working on it, of awareness as we go through those things. We might have relationship issues in our 20s. We might have relationship issues in our 30s, might have relationship issues in our 40s or 50s, 60s, etc. But the point is we'll have themes that we circle back to, but if we're ever evolving, we're going to see those themes in a different way than we saw it before. And then we're going to learn something new as we sort of work our way up the spiral. And this applies for health and well-being, time and money, freedom, love and relationships, a vocation and creative expression. We have these themes that we revisit over and over again. And there's part of us that go, why in the heck am I still dealing with this issue? And it's because that's a life lesson that you need to learn. You need to work through it, because there's a reason for you having to work through that, because you have a gift to give to the world that requires you getting through this thing. And if it's coming up and over and over again, it's because that's why. So, you and I have worked with, many hundreds of women, because since you've been involved in TechPixies, not only as a student, but as an employee, we've worked with 750 women in our VIP group coaching program. We've now worked with over 100 women in our self-study membership program. There's some common themes that we see. And, you and I have experienced them ourselves, but we've also watched these themes play out for our students. What has been the greatest gift for you of doing this work?
It has been actually the learning of love and unconditional positive regard.
Mm.
But I don't know how it fits, but that's my answer.
I think it's helping women to realize that they have to unconditionally love themselves.
I think so. And if I sort of think about, I love the the growth mindset. That has been a profound learning for me since joining TechPixies and coming across all of that growth mindset and the listening and yeah, just you can change what you think. You can find the right people. You can work on yourself. You can do an awful lot. And it's very, very subtle. And it's very strong when you keep working at it and then it works. And sort of like you said, Joy, with the spiral, I think things come to you and you might put them aside. You work on it, it comes to you at a different level. You work on it a bit more, you might reject it, you might invite it back, but you can do an awful lot with what's here, plus connection. I think that is one of the other things that is massive in TechPixies. It's the connections that people make that I think those connections also rewire. I think our community, the support and the kindness and the helpfulness, and I've sort of got used to it. But I think if I was to step somewhere else, there is often a lot of different stuff that I think we put aside in the TechPixies community, and you can put that stuff aside completely, the negative thoughts, feelings, whatever. We let them come up, we talk about stuff, we share our vulnerabilities. And I think that's one of the strong things in the life coaching, is that anyone can share their strengths, their vulnerabilities, and find where they sit comfortably with all of that complicated stuff. We don't know how it works, but it's part of being okay with that, the not knowing. I like that.
Yeah, and a safe space. I think that's what we've provided, is a hugely safe space where, and I think this goes back to, well, one of the things that I think is important for any company to have is a set of values. So we have the SPARKLE, supportive, positive, authentic relationships with women who are keen to learn and want to be empowered. But we also have, I have my own personal values, which we encourage all TechPixies to come up with their own values. It's one of the actual, one of the weeks that you coach on. You have 12 different topics that you coach on, which Teresa helped us, really define and establish. From perfectionism to imposter syndrome to compare and despair to negative feedback. We have a whole list of things, but we also have a few things like setting goals, reflecting, taking action. And these things are really important for making progress. But one of those other things that we talk about that's important for making progress is your values. Because if you know your values, then when you go to employ someone or you go to choose who you're going to work with, you think, okay, well, these are my values. What are their values? Do our values align? Right. So, and I think one of the things that I have developed, I started with TechPixies values. And then as we introduced individual values to the curriculum, I thought, well, actually, I need to tap into my own individual values. What are they? And and actually it was, again, I do a lot of my own coach, like I have my own coaches, and I did one program that really made me realize, like, what your values are is what you're focused on. So if you don't have a set of values, you're sort of all over the place. And at the time, and still, one of the things I realized, for me, I've been on this one of my big journeys from a life coaching perspective and a neuro coaching perspective, for sure, has been on challenging myself around the money mindset. I mean, it's been something that probably I wish I didn't have to learn, but now by having learned it and going through it, I can share that with other people. But I find that, so I'm in this coaching session with this coach, and they're saying, right, okay, I want you to write down 10 of your values, all 10. And then they start saying things like this, which I thought was amazing. They said, okay, you have to trade one of your values, to save a starving child. And you're like, okay, which one am I going to trade? Right. And then it's like, okay, the city of New York has been nuked. You have to trade one of your values to, save, or is about to be nuked. You have to trade one of your values to save the city of New York. So you're having to trade your values, right? And so then the point is you get to about, and they build, right? It goes from like a son of a, I mean, it goes from a really simple situation, which is like, you really want, like, the house of your dreams is available. You have to trade one of your values for it. It goes all the way to like the world is going to implode and you have to trade your value for it. So what's the value you trade? And I thought that was really interesting because when we got to the very end, he said, all right, what's the last 3 values you have remaining? And I looked at my values, and they were faith and family and friends. Like, those are my 3 values. I think it was something like faith, family, and friends. And he said, and now I want you to notice that if your finances aren't where you'd like them to be, and finance isn't one of your top 3 values, that says a lot. And I was like, oh, it's not on my radar, right? Because it's not in my values. And that was when I made a major decision to, in fact, I have a little sticker. I have a lot of stickers on my computer, but one of my stickers is Champion of Financial Independence for Women. Wow. Because that's when I realized, okay, I need to reset my values so that they are in alignment. So now I have the 5 F's, right? So the 5 F's are faith, which is my top value, family, financial independence, right? And then fitness and friendship and fun, right? They're sort of like all together. So those are my 5 or 6 F's. And of course, my last name starts with F as well. So I'm going to go with that. But I find the values thing really, really important. But one of the things that I realized from a personal level, apart from my little fun F values, is in working with different people from different backgrounds, and I think this is particularly apt with the Pride Month theme, open-mindedness and non-judgmental. Those 2 values are actually really important to me. And as someone who grew up in what would have otherwise been a Christian home, but along the lines of fundamentalist Christian. Now, my family was not fundamentalist Christian, but the church we were at had some fundamentalist Christian views. And certainly the church I came out of in California had fundamentalist Christian views. So that was, I had to make the transition from someone who wasn't open-minded and non-judgmental to becoming a person who was open-minded and non-judgmental. And it was through relationships and friendships and with you and Lisa and other people in my life that I realized that was something that was important to me. And I do think that is a value we embody as a company at TechPixies, is non-judgmental and open-mindedness, because you can work with that. When you walk into a conversation with judgment and closed-mindedness, which is basically a closed mindset, there's not much you can do. And I think at the end of the day, open-mindedness and non-judgmental is the greatest foundation for love, and also for that next level of transformation.
It fits with curiosity, doesn't it? They are they're the same thing. And the recognition of common humanity and a never-ending diversity within each of us, within the whole community, and coming to somebody and saying, that's interesting, tell me about it. That is really strong. Just, just listening, just finding out.
Yeah, and holding space.
Holding space, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the other thing we do. You know, I talk a lot about it. I mean, this came out of the Dream Builder program, but this partners in believing. You know, like we are going to hold whatever your dream and vision is for your life. We're going to hold that, whatever you want, and we're not going to put our limitations on it. You know, and really, we want what you want. I want what you want for you, because that's important to me. And you know, I'm going to help you get there in any way that I possibly can without doing it myself. You have to do it, right? So how did the program help you transform? But then how are you using that transformation to help transform others? Or help others transform themselves, I should say.
The program helped me transform because it said, here's something, you know, I approach as many tech pixies do. I'm of a certain age, you know, we didn't even have computers at school. Computers, you know, so I got that. I got, yeah, you can learn these things. You can decide where it fits in your life and use it, not use it, but don't be afraid of it. Just, and what you need to learn, you can learn. So that was a nice practical lesson. I love practical. And then I think the positive thing, you're very generous as an employer about letting people find their strengths and giving us a go at different things. And I think, and again, encouraging the strengths, you know, and saying, okay, we'll let that bit go. You know, perhaps if you don't want to do that, that's fine. But this bit, you're really good. Let's go with that. And then I think the whole thing, which, and we come back to this again and again in almost every week of the life coaching, we come back to what are each person's different personal values, and how do they then make that into intentional goal. Goal is not fitting for some people, so we offer intention, values, intention. Take a pause, breathe, reflect, and, you know, then come from that place, acceptance of what you're feeling and moving with that. So that's where I've learned that through these last years working at TechPixies, which includes the coach training, which includes the many coaching conversations. But I think there are some very, very simple, basic fundamentals that we all keep working on and learning. And it's the respect, it's the unconditional positive regard, and the, you know, how it fits with pride really is almost like, I don't want a Pride Month. I want a Pride Month for everyone to be totally themselves this day. And it's going to be, you know, celebration of diversity, which is in everybody, you know, so I stood as an outsider some of the time, so I can appreciate what that feels like. You know, I felt very much an outsider sometimes.
I remember a conversation you and I had once at a bar about that.
I remember that we were two women standing at the bar talking about your experience in the football changing rooms.
No, it was the rowing changing rooms where, I realized I was the only woman in the room that was straight.
That's it. And you didn't have a coming out story.
And I didn't have a coming out story. That's right. I couldn't help. Someone in the changing room was saying, like, I'm going to tell my parents, and like, what do I say? And I realized everyone had a piece of advice except for me.
Yeah, and we've all done that. Well, I've done that coming out many a time. So yeah.
But you were saying to me, like, now, like, basically, you know what I feel like most of the time when I'm the person in the room that's, you know, not like everyone else or whatever, you know.
You're sort of, it's one of those things where you're sort of invisible, and you could be, or you know, nobody knows anything about what's going on with anybody else, but you feel outside, and you are outside of that experience, and actually you do that, and then you can recognize how other people will feel outside for different reasons.
Yeah. Well, that was, and the other time that was really interesting was later on with rowing. I remember thinking at Skidmore, I remember thinking, gosh, I've never bonded with these girls. Like I've never fit in. Yes. And then a couple of years later, I was ahead of the Charles, and I was walking down the street, or walking down the road path. And I run into one of the girls that was on the team with me. And she introduces me to her partner and her female partner, and the penny dropped. And she said, oh yeah, I broke up with so-and-so who was also on the rowing team, and she was going out with so-and-so. And I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. Like I was not aware that I was the only person in that team as well that didn't have the same feelings for women, right? So it was really interesting to sort of know I didn't fit in, but not understand why I didn't fit in.
Yeah, and I think that fits with many other forms of difference. We don't, a lot of the neurodiverse stuff is only being recognized, particularly in women and particularly in older women. That there are many people who say, I didn't know, but I was struggling with this, and now but it's kind of like, I think everybody has some of that stuff. And
so your view on it is we should be proud of who we are, no matter what, what we are, what we believe. We should be proud of that.
Well, do you know what? I think, yes, that is, but also we should kind of love the not knowing. I don't know about you, or I'm not going to presume that you're the same as me. I'm not going to presume you're different as me. We've both got things in common, but let's just keep it open.
Yeah.
Let's allow difference. Let's allow what would be seen as actually a disagreement, but it doesn't need to be a disagreement. It's just a difference sometimes.
Yeah. Like basically rein in the assumptions.
Please stop with that. I almost want to say it's a should. Stop the assumptions.
Well, I just had a very long conversation about assumptions with someone. Yes. And I think we do not realize how often we assume things, and, and I think that's just it. And that's just it, in the conversation in the locker room, the assumption was everyone was this way, or my assumption was, well, I don't fit in, but it's not understanding why. And that's where that curiosity is. Okay, why do I feel this way? And what do I need to know about the situation in order to make it work more for me and the people around me? But yeah, I think reining in the assumptions and just, neutralizing the assumptions, and just, saying, I'm not going to walk in with assumptions. It's like what is it? The zero tolerance rule. We should have the zero assumptions rule, like that we walk into a situation or a conversation without assumptions and or assume the best, right? I think there's the other side of that until proven wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I have loved talking to you, but I also have loved just knowing you. I think in the beginning when we met, you always had bright orange and yellow jackets on, and you've always had this gorgeous red hair, and you bring this beautiful energy to the room wherever you are, and that's what I've always loved about you. And I'm just so thankful that you're part of the TechPixies community and part of the team, and have been for such a long time. And you've gone through everything with me, which I just love, and I'm so thankful. I just want to touch on one thing I think would be fun for people to hear, because, everyone sometimes sees a coach and thinks, oh, they're super confident and they're really great at what they're doing. And you are really great at what you're doing. But I want to just point out that potentially the concept of you being the resident coach was not something you had envisaged for yourself. But we got you there, and you got yourself there. And I want to just really acknowledge Teresa's role in this. I had a conversation with Teresa, and I said, Teresa, I think Juliet's ready. Like, I think she can do it. And she's like, I totally agree with you. And it was like, all right, let's hatch a plan. How are we going to move her into this role? And Teresa really fully supported that. And having been a resident coach for 4 years, to pass that on to someone, was such I think she did it in such a beautiful way, in such a supportive way. But let's just talk about what it was like to sort of have that conversation when when I called you from the camper van, which is my happy place. And I'm saying, hey, Juliet, I think you could step into this resident coach role. What do you think? Let's talk about the emotions you went through and then where you are now, because you're fully owning that role now, and what that transition's been like for you, because I think people need to hear that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I thought, no, I can't run groups. No, I can't be at the front of the room, even on Zoom. No. And then I talked to a couple of people who said, you'd be mad. How would you not want to do that? Yes, it's a challenge. And I thought, yeah, I would be mad to not want to step into, and with the support of Joy, who's supportive and positive, and the lovely, beloved Teresa, who has kind of really nicely supported me, mentored me in truth. She's been a lovely, lovely person to help me along this path and to become a friend in that. So I think I had it was a school holidays. I had to think about, or to say yes or no, or shall I, shan't I? And I thought, yeah. And with support, with preparation, and I was so nervous and so like, okay, well, the worst that can happen is that I can say I've tried it, and at least I didn't just say no before. Anyway, and so I suddenly took over, and we decided that actually it was best for me to take ownership of being the life coach lead, rather than, because I've sat with Teresa on many calls, and I might want to say, what do you think, Teresa? Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so we decided taking ownership, and that was really, that was great, actually, because I perhaps wouldn't have chosen that. But I kind of knew deep down that was required, that I would just step into it, prepare, work on it, give it a go. TechPixies groups, they're beautifully running. So you couldn't have a nicer bunch of people to work with. And I think, we have new people coming in, and we work with them, and they, there's something, once it's been established, it has been established. So I've got, it couldn't be a better situation to learn and to grow in. So I'm really pleased I did. And from this term, as it were, I'm doing all the 3 groups, which now feels good and okay. It's still an enormous opportunity for growth. But I think there's also something very strong about not knowing, not being an expert. And, I bring in the subject and a few ideas, and then we do a lot of work with what's in the room. And hopefully people feel okay. Sometimes we have some cameras on, and that's fine. Sometimes people don't speak until they've been in the group for a good few weeks or months, and that's fine. Or somebody's, at work, not able to speak, it's all absolutely fine. And then hopefully people learn to find their voice. And when somebody says, I've been coming to these meetings and I didn't have my camera on, and then I've been watching for weeks or months, and this is the first time I've spoken, and that is lovely, because that's the first time somebody's spoken in our lovely, safe TechPixies coaching group, but it's the start of something more. And the fact that I'm just there to witness that, to share that, to partly to enable, but we're actually all working together as a group to enable that. I think that's a real thing, because I've always had the thing about listening to the quiet voices in the room.
Yeah.
And I'm not super confident. I'm not going to stand up at the front and be an expert, but I've learned that actually growing into something, you can actually become, you know, who's to say I can't be at the front of the room? You know, if I do my preparation, it's okay.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and you know, I think it was right after you'd fully owned it that we had a new student come in, and she sent me an email in support, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I love Juliet. She's amazing." And it was just like, this is so cool, you know, that confirmation that, you know, this was the right transition to make. And you know, you wouldn't have been ready to make that transition 4 years ago. You now are, and you have done that very successfully. And I'm so thankful for that. You know, it's nice to know that on Tuesdays, the students are taken care of. On Thursdays, the students are taken care of. That we've got amazing team members doing that. But I just wanted to come on and have the opportunity for you to share your story, and also to, you know, for us to talk about values and the importance of curiosity and the importance of unconditional love. And I think we have done that. And I'm so grateful to you for that. Do you have any final thoughts on how someone might maybe better handle a relationship with someone who might have a different sexual orientation to them? You know, I think that's something that people don't necessarily know what to do or what to say if they've not necessarily had that, if they've not been open-minded, or they've not been non-judgmental. And I, speaking from someone who had to make that transition, you know, I think I would have appreciated some advice. So if you have any advice for people who are saying, hey, actually, I want to be open-minded, and I want to be more non-judgmental, and I want to be more unconditional love based, what would your advice be?
Often mine has been find the humor. If you can find humor in things, but there's something about just give it a chance, see, you know, just be open, because you accepting somebody else allows you also to accept some parts of yourself. People are so interesting, and really, you know, it's fascinating all the differences and similarities that we have. And I can't give advice. If you've got fixed views, you have to just keep them. You're welcome to them, have them. But I like the other one, which is saying, wow, I never thought of that. Or, ooh, interesting. Let me think about that. Yeah, just enjoying it. You don't have to know anything. You don't have to be strict or judgmental. I don't think it really helps.
Yeah.
Just see. It's interesting.
I love it. Get interested.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time today, and thank you for all the work you do at TechPixies.
Joy, thank you for being the lovely Joy Foster, and also Teresa in a way, but thank you, and thank you all the community, beautiful TechPixies community, really.
Yeah, we do. We have the most beautiful community.
We really do. Yeah. Treasures all.
So lucky. Well, thanks, Juliet.
Thank you, Joy.